us to be challenged on levels and on issues that we haven't been challenged previously. I ask that you let us walk away from this with a deeper understanding of your desire for us in our life. You are an incredible God. Help us to become your incredible people. And everybody said, amen. Amen. Amen and amen. So, with everything that's been going on, with the deaths that's been taking place, with the storms that have been taking place, with the whole, it feels like, and I've had several people tell me, it feels like all hell is breaking loose right now around us. And I've had a lot of Christians who have, and I posted a video to Facebook about it, just stay calm, it's okay, it's going to be all right. And but it's still heavy on my heart because we have a lot of our people who are stressed out, who are concerned, and are dealing with some anxiety over the situations that they're facing right now. And one of the things that has really struggled, that I have struggled with, is as a Christ follower, our thought process should be different than the rest of the world. And when the rest of the world is freaking out about situations and circumstances, we're supposed to be the ones that our feet are on solid ground and our emotions are in control and in check, and we're not stressed out and we're not losing sleep, and we're supposed to be the ones that have peace in the middle of everything that's going on. However, one of the things that I've noticed recently is that usually the Christians are the worst ones when it comes to this. And it might just be the fact that I pick up on their anxiety a little bit more and on their stress a little bit more due to the fact that I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you're completely out of context. You're completely out of position. And what I have learned over time is that it's really truly all about focus. It's all about what we choose to focus on. And I've got friends of mine who anytime that a political season comes into play, or anytime there's this, anytime the news or the media hits on one topic a lot, they'll do themselves a favor and they'll go on a media fast, in which they'll cut the TV off, they'll cut their Facebook off, they'll cut their emails off, and they'll walk away from it for a week or 2 weeks and give it everything a chance to die down. Anything that's major in the media right now, next week will be old news. There'll be something else that they're worried about, or something else that they're pushing to the forefront, or some other kind of an agenda that they're pushing. And our problem is we get wrapped up in the issues. We get wrapped up in them way too quick. We get sucked into it. And that's our flesh. Our flesh gets sucked up into it because we want to be in the know, so to speak. We want to understand. We want to have a comprehension of everything that's taking place around us. The problem is we put ourselves in a position to become a victim of depression and anxiety and concern. And what can end up happening is we can become disconnected from our Father by our concerns. The things that we allow our mind to focus on can actually disconnect us from our Heavenly Father. Not disconnect in a spiritual sense, as in I'm no longer a Christian or I'm no longer saved, but disconnected in an intimate sense. Is the fact that my concerns can actually come in between us to where I don't feel Him anymore. Because I'm so focused on what it is I'm worried about that I can no longer hear His voice talking to me. It's in stark contrast to Colossians chapter 3, verse 1 through 2, where it says, if then you have been raised with Christ. So Paul's talking to Christians. He said, if you've been raised with Christ, if you claim to be a Christian, if you claim to be a Christ follower, he says, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. If we dig into it a little bit, he's not saying, let me tell you what he's not saying. He's not saying, don't think about what you're going through or what you're doing. He's not saying go through life as an airhead, or go through life without any kind of a plan, or go through life without any kind of a design, or any kind of a vision, or any kind of a dream. What he's saying is, however, is that if I'm a Christ follower, my thought process should be different. the paradigm in which I live should be shifted from that of the rest of the world. When the rest of the world looks at something and sees negativity in every aspect of it, as a Christ follower, our goal should be to look at it and see that which is positive. Our goal should be able to look at, take people, for example. You have someone who walks into a church building, and I've seen it take place and I've seen it happen where they walk in and they don't fit in. They're not dressed appropriately. They smell like they just went on a 4-day drink and just, they walk in, they sit down, and sometimes you can see people and they'll just they'll move away from them, or they'll slide, and you look at it and we very quickly, due to our flesh, look at them and say, oh, well, they got a problem with alcohol, and they got this issue, and they got that issue, and this is something that they're struggling with, and we see the negative aspect of it. Whereas if we were to pause for just a second, our goal should be to look at them and see them the way Christ sees them. What does Jesus see when he sees that individual? When they walk in, Jesus doesn't look at them and say, oh, they have a drinking problem. Maybe he says, oh, man, do you have any idea what kind of wound they receive that causes them to drink? What's the inner struggle that's taking place? If we can look past that issue. I've had several people who are concerned about the hurricanes, and one of the things that they're constantly saying is, it's going to ruin us, it's going to destroy us, and that's a worldly concept and thought process. It's a worldly thought process. Being scared. And the reason that being scared is worldly is because my daddy owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. You can destroy everything that I own. It's okay. Because my daddy can replace it. He is my provision. And as long as my focus is on that, understanding that everything that I have didn't come from me to begin with, then I'm not scared to lose it. Because I haven't lost anything. It didn't come from me. It came from him. So I set my mind on things that are above. When I take that paradigm shift and apply it to my life, I'm able to relieve myself of some of the negative stress, some of the anxiety that's in my life. And it's a difficult thing. When we read this passage of Scripture, which says, seek the things that are above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God, we look at that and we say, we can be honest, if we're honest with ourselves, we can say that there's many times in our life and in our walk with Christ that we don't think that way. There's many times that I look at my own life and I say, God, I'm failing miserably. And not even in a gross sin kind of a way, in which I'm failing morally or ethically, but just a failure to really truly look at life the way God looks at life. How does God desire me to see things? How does God desire me to see a situation? What is Jesus' opinion of different topics and different issues and circumstances? How do we overcome the cares of the world? I believe there's a couple of things that we do. The first one is this. We be a prepared people, not a procrastinating people. Okay? A prepared people, not a procrastinating people. And I'm guilty of this, just like anybody else is. I am the king of procrastinators. Okay? Especially you give me something that I don't want to do, I will find every excuse in the book to put it off. Ask my coworkers when it comes to paperwork. I hate it. Hate it with a passion. So it will sit there until my next shift. We have so many hours to put it in. Okay? And it's 72 hours. My reports are usually there until 71 and a half hours. And then it gets put in. I'm the king of procrastinators. But we need to be a prepared people, not a procrastinating people, if we want to overcome the cares of this world. Procrastination actually causes us to heap even more stress on an already stressful life.
Yes, Lord.
Whenever we wait to do things that could have been done now,
yes, Lord,
and we wait until right there at the deadline. It stresses us out, it stresses our families out, it stresses our friends out, and we look at it like, and then all of a sudden it comes down to the deadline, and we're like, I got so much stuff to do, and you're like, God, I could have done this 2 weeks ago. But okay. The first step to overcoming the cares of this world is to be a prepared people, not a procrastinating people. Let's take a look really quick. 1 Peter 1:13. Therefore, preparing your minds for action. I underlined it and put it in bold for a reason. Preparing your minds for action. We have a tendency to not want to think about how to approach topics or issues in our life. We have a tendency to say to ourselves, and there's a balance that has to be made, and we're going to look at it because many times we can overthink something and we can stress out about it. It's one thing to say, okay, if this happens, that's how I'll approach it. It's a completely another thing to look at it and become lost in what's taking place. To become lost in it. But he tells us, he says, preparing your minds for action, being sober-minded. Being sober-minded. Set your hope. These are action. These are things of action that we have to do. Set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Peter is telling us that we've got to first off prepare our minds. If we're going to overcome the concerns of this world, prepare our minds. Understand that there are going to be curveballs in life. Don't freak out about it. Curveballs are going to come. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's what cracks me up. I laugh all the time whenever somebody looks at me and they tell me their plans and then they talk about how it got ruined and they're completely shocked that their plans were ruined. The only reason you make plans is so they can be ruined. Okay? The moment that you set a plan in action, everything is going to try and destroy that plan. It's the way it works. That's just life. That's no big spiritual principle. It's life. It's called Murphy's Law. It takes place. It happens. But for some reason, Christians seem shocked. Like we're supposed to have some kind of a special, I don't know, aura or protection from life throwing a curveball at us. We get shocked. Well, how could God let this happen to me? You stepped into the batter's box. Curveballs come. It's all about focus. It's all about looking ahead. It's all about looking to Christ. It's all about saying, okay, how does Jesus want me to see this? What is Jesus expecting me? How is he expecting me to respond to this? See, far too often we don't set our minds on the things of Christ. We simply approach the stress of life the way Walter would approach it. And anytime we do that, we can become overcome with the anxiety and despair. You see, anytime that we take our eyes off of Christ, anytime we take our eyes off of his desire and his will, is the moment that we become weary, and it's the moment that we lose hope. And that's not just in life, that's in ministry, that's in business, that's how you can know. If you're getting weary and you've lost hope, and you're saying to yourself, I just don't think there's anything else that I can do. Woe is me. Throwing a pity party for yourself. Just constantly, I just think I'm done. I just might as well just hang it up. That is without a doubt one of the best ways to know I've taken my eyes off of Christ. I've taken my eyes off of Christ and I'm relying on my own strength instead of his. Because I actually think that I have the ability to make the difference by myself. It doesn't work that way. So, prepare your mind, but don't play the what-if game. Don't play the what-if game. The what-if game will screw you every time. Every single time. Right? Well, what if this happens? So what?
Deal with it.
Cross that bridge when you get there. We get so stressed out about the what if that never takes place that we damage our health. We can get so stressed out about the what if that we lose sleep, that we don't eat, that we get physically sick worried about the what if of life. Look, what if? If it happens, it happens. You cross the bridge when you get there. The what if game will kill you. It's one of the reasons why we're told in Matthew chapter 6, verse 34, therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Jesus isn't saying, again, he's not saying don't plan, don't prepare, because Peter tells us we're supposed to prepare. Jesus is simply saying this, you've got enough things to worry about today. Plan for tomorrow, but don't worry about tomorrow. Plan for it, but don't worry about it. Don't play the what-if game. Set your plan in motion, and if it falls through, it falls through. You pick yourself back up, and you say, okay, Jesus, how am I supposed to look at this now? We lose the opportunity to learn things because we stress over the what-if. We have backup plans and backup plans for the backup plans, which have backup plans. We play what if. And it's very, very, very demoralizing. When all you can do is see the negative aspects of life instead of the positive ones. What if your plan works? Think about it like that. But hey, make a plan and roll with it. And if the bridge gets burned, build another one. It's not the end of the world. We make mountains out of molehills. Things that we should easily be able to step across, and we allow it to control our thought processes for entire days and entire weeks. We become individuals controlled by our thoughts instead of individuals who control our thoughts. So how do we change that? How do we become a people that don't do this? It's simple. You meditate on the greatness of God. It's very simple. It's not easy. It's simple. It's a process. Remember here where Peter said, what did he say? Therefore, preparing your minds for action. Look, when you're born, and I'm out of time, but when you're born, and the environment in which you're raised influences every thought process you have until the day that you die. Okay? You are a product of your environment. Okay? Whether you had both parents, whether you had a bad parent, whether you had great parents, whether you went to what kind of schooling you had, whether or not you were beaten up and picked on as a kid, whether or not you had things that were provided for you as a child, what kind of relationships you had growing up, every single bit of that, it produces within you a thought process of how you approach life. It's natural for you to look at things in a negative way. It's unnatural for us to say, wait a minute, what does God want? Which is why Peter tells us here that we prepare our minds and then we set our hope. We don't put our hope in our plans. We put our hope in Christ. If your hope is in your plans, your hope will never come to fruition. Your hope has to be set on Christ and only Him. So it's active participation on our part, making ourselves focus on the things of God. So we meditate on the greatness of God. Let's take a look in Philippians chapter 4. We're going to read verses 4 through 7 right now. It says, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I will say, rejoice. There are times that I don't feel like rejoicing. Anybody else? There are times that I look at my situation, and I'll just be honest with you. There are times that for a split second that I think my situation is bigger than my God. This is why we're told by Paul in Philippians that we're to rejoice in the Lord always. Because when we verbally rejoice, God, you are awesome. God, you are great. God, you are incredible. God, you are bigger than anything that I could ever face. You are at that point preparing your mind for action. You are speaking things into existence that you didn't know could have existed. actually becoming your own source of encouragement at that point. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. We all know those individuals who have absolutely no reason. They play the what-if game, and they lose all common sense. Right? They start throwing scenarios at you that it honestly would take an apocalypse for it to happen. You know, like, you just need to shut up. You just need to shut up because you're stressing yourself out and you're doing yourself no good. Right? So it says, let your reasonableness be known to everyone. We should be a people of reason. We should be a people of, when they come to us, we're able to differentiate between that which is reality and that which is not. Like, dude, there's no possibility for that. The Pacific Ocean would have to replace itself with the Atlantic Ocean for that to take place. You need to just stop. Okay? He goes on, he says, the Lord is at hand. Okay? The Lord is at hand. Where is the Lord? At hand. What's that mean? Right there. Beside you. Not off in some far distance. Not off. He's right there. Amen. Calm down. It's going to be okay. He goes on and says, do not be anxious about anything. Anything. Somebody say anything. Anything. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Paul tells us in Philippians that we have to, the moment that we begin to feel anxious, it's all about focus. The moment that I have that opportunity to feel anxious, I am now at a crossroads. I have to make the decision. Am I going to focus on that which is going to make me anxious? Or am I going to rejoice in the Lord? Am I going to say, God, you are good. God, you are great. God, you are wonderful. And when you first start saying it, you really don't think it.
That's right.
I'm just going to be honest.
Right.
God, I've told him, God, if you were so great, this wouldn't take place. God, if you were so good, you'd have fixed this already. I wouldn't even be thinking about it. Well. But then again, that's deflecting. That's blaming God for something I probably did myself.
Yeah, come on.
So he says, rejoice in the Lord. Let your reasonableness be known. God's right there with you. Don't be anxious about anything. Stop, slow down, calm down, focus on Him. It's going to be okay. You have to make that choice. It's a conscious choice. And I've had people tell me, well, you just have no idea what I've gone through. I don't care. Let's just be honest. I don't care what you've gone through. And the reason I don't care what you've gone through is because what you've gone through doesn't justify your unwillingness to slow down and focus. You have the choice, except way too often we feel more comfortable getting lost in our anxiety than actually truly relying on God. Because we want to feel like we're in control. So the moment that we have to let that go and not get lost in it, then we lose all semblance of control. And let's just be honest, every single one of us in here have control issues. We all want to be in control. And if we're not in control of our life and our situations and our circumstances, we freak out. Okay? Let's just be honest. But he tells us we have a choice to make. The moment that we begin to feel anxious, we have to take that issue, not any other, that issue, to God in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Why thanksgiving? Because it's a mental thing. It's a focus thing. We go to Him with thanksgiving because we know He's already answered whatever it is that we're taking to Him. We don't go to Him with despair or rejection or dejection or any kind of a loss. We go to Him placing that care before Him with thanksgiving because we know that before we ever did it, the moment we made the choice to do it, He had already answered the prayer. He already answered it. It's after we do that See, this is where people get messed up. They actually think that God is supposed to give them peace in the middle of their storm while they're struggling with the anxiety. It doesn't work that way. Never has, never will. If we choose to get lost within our anxiety and are lost within our issues, we won't find peace. He tells us that after we rejoice, after we calm down, after we choose to go to God with it in prayer, it's at that point that he says, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I frustrate people to no end who come to me with issues and problems and concerns. And they'll throw them at me and they'll say, this is what I'm dealing with. And my first response is always, well, have you spent time with the Holy Spirit? Have you talked to the Holy Spirit about it? Well, no, because I don't want to talk with you until you talk with the Holy Spirit about it. Why? Because he'll answer it for me. I don't have to answer it.
Amen.
Okay? How do I know you haven't talked with him? Because you don't have peace. You don't have, I have talked with him. You probably talked at him instead of talked with him. Okay? It's simple. Rejoice in the Lord. Choose to calm down. Okay? Calm down, bro. It's going to be all right. You got this. Okay? Spend some time with him. Make him important. That's why he says rejoice in the Lord. Make him important again. Make him bigger than your issue. That's why we rejoice. Because we make him bigger than what we're going through. Because that thing which we focus on the most is going to seem the biggest.
Right. That's right.
So if I can make that decision and say, oh, no. God, you are incredible. You are phenomenal. You are awesome. You are wonderful. You are higher than anyone else. You're more powerful than anyone. I'm exalting him. I'm rejoicing in him. I'm making him larger than my circumstance. So guess what? He begins to outweigh everything else. And at that point, then I can have peace. Then I can have peace. You know, in the Psalms, we're told that he hides us beneath his wings, and that many times he overshadows us. You see, it's only then that we can find peace, because when we're within the shadow of God, our circumstances can't find us. And it's only then. It's called the secret place. And many believers don't find it because we choose to exalt the issue instead of exalting God. He goes on in verse 8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. We actively change our thought process. This isn't something that you make the decision today, I'm going to think different, and then all of a sudden everything falls into place and you think differently. This isn't one of those circumstances in which you say a prayer and from that point on you're positive every time you turn around. This is active participation. This is us making the decision and following through on it. You hear that? Following through on it. And when he says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, what's he saying here? This is what he's saying. You need to find some time and you need to meditate. Okay? You need to meditate. Not the New Age Zen, sit down with your legs crossed and your fingers on, not that crowd. No, meditate. What does meditate? Meditate means to think deeply. To think deeply. which is what he's telling us here. Whatever's true, whatever's honorable, whatever's just, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's commendable, if there's any excellence, there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Why? Because the more time that I spend thinking deeply on the things of God, the less time I have to struggle with the issues. It's all about focus. That doesn't mean we don't plan. It doesn't mean we don't prepare. But it does mean that our preparations don't consume us. It does mean that our planning doesn't control us. We begin to become the people that everybody else comes to and says, hey, what do you have going on? Because I see your world falling apart, but you still have peace. The peace is only found when our focus is correct. If our focus is not correct, we'll have no peace. I want to encourage you this morning. Grab your bulletins. Grab the connection card. Do me a favor and fill that out for me. And then under spiritual challenge, I've got here 2 different challenges. I want you to pick one of them. And I want you to circle it, and I want you to let me know which one you're going to do. Does anybody not have a bulletin? Who doesn't have one? We can get you one.
Need this bulletin?
I need a couple of them up there.
Is that free?
If you can grab some pencils too, brother, I appreciate it.
What's that?
But one of the challenges that I have on there for us this week is to memorize Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 7. Is it 6 on there? Do yourself a favor. It's 6 through 7. But do yourself a favor. Be a go-getter. Do 4 through 8. Do 4 through 8. And if you can't, if you feel like that's too much, circle the next one. Devote at least 10 minutes a day to biblical meditation. To think deeply about the things of God. How do you do that? Take a passage of Scripture, read it, say, God, what does that mean? And then read it again. God, what does that mean? And then read it again. Do it for 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long passage of Scripture. It could be just one verse. Pick a proverb. God, what does that mean? Read it again. God, what does that mean? Well, this is what I think it means, but God, what does it mean? And read it again. Take an active part in fixing your focus. Because without it, you're going to always struggle with the cares of this world. I'm going to pray and close this out. As you leave, do me a favor, fold those up, drop them in the offering box for me. On the back of it, you can also put any prayer requests that you have, things that you would like for us to agree with you and pray with you about. That's one of my favorite things to do on a Sunday is grab those cards. I usually beat Pastor Monica to it because I want to grab the cards and I want to see what people need prayer with. And I'll go through them while I eat lunch and I'll pray for each and every person that puts one in there. So do me a favor and put them in there along with your prayer requests so that I can pray with you and agree with you that God's going to do something pretty incredible in your life. Amen? I love you guys.
Love you too.
Love you a whole bunch. Let's pray. Daddy, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for the opportunity to jump into your word for a little while. I ask that it'll become real to us, that it'll really, truly dig down deep into us, and that this coming week, any opportunity that we have to become anxious, that we'll remember that it's an opportunity to rejoice in who you are and what you're doing. It's an opportunity to actively remove ourselves from the cares of this world and get lost in who you are. To find peace when everyone else is only finding despair. You are an incredible God. Help us to become your incredible people. And everybody said, amen.